In this video, I will show you how we can create a chair that's made out of a tubular pipe base, and then we will create a seating shell on top of it. My unit system is set to inches. I will go to a right view because we will start with drawing the pipes from a side. The pipes also grow from the ground plane upwards, so it does not make sense to draw the pipes actually in a top view because that's the wrong orientation. So click on right, then we can create a sketch, click on this plane. Actually, because we haven't created anything else yet and we can't click by accident maybe on the face of a cube, we can also simply click on the line tool. You see with the line tool it asks you to select a construction plane anyway, and then before we can start sketching it will create the sketch for us automatically. Okay, now I can zoom in a little bit or zoom out, because our pipe system has at the base, for example, a distance of 20 inches and a height of 19 inches. So here's 20, there's 10, so we can draw a line from there to there to there, maybe something like this. Okay, perfect. Then we, for example, can add a small fillet, maybe 2 inches, and let's do the same. 2 inches, maybe. Okay, good. So now we have to make sure that when we start dimensioning our sketch, it scales or deforms exactly the way how I want it to. So first thing we should do is this point should be horizontal constraint to this one. So I cannot by accident, like in this case, move this one down. So this one should be horizontally constrained to the world center point as well. Now I can only move them left and right. And because we have the fillet constraint with a radius, you see I can adjust this lag and adjust then the rounding. Perfect. The distance between these 2 points should be around 20, so we can add a distance marker or dimension, 20, there. Okay, and can maybe move this one over and use the grid a little bit to adjust this, but that's not necessarily perfect. So let's say first these two lines I actually would like to have the same angle or an individual angle. So how can I do this? I can draw a line from the left to the right point, then press escape, select this line, we create it and turn it to a construction line. So it's just a helper. And with this done, now I can press D and create an angle dimension between them, maybe 86, and maybe here, I don't know, let's say maybe 86. Okay, perfect. So because we have dimensioned the two angles and we have dimensioned the distance between these 2 points, and these radii or arcs are dimensioned, I cannot dimension this one with a driving dimension, but I can read it out right now. Hold on. So I made a mistake. I forgot one point. I can still move this one up and down, which actually scales this object. So this point to this point, or this edge to this point, we have to define. And I also would like my sketch to be nicely centered. So there's a little trick we will do. We will first add a point onto the midpoint position of this line, and you see automatically it creates the constraint. Now I can say add a vertical constraint of this point to here, because by this point being moved to the y-axis, this line will follow it because the point is always set to be on the midpoint of this line. Perfect. And now press D and we can create a dimension between this point and the sketch center. And this, for example, should be 20. Okay, good. Oh wait, no, not 20, 19. And now I can only create a driven dimension for this one. So I can get a readout that this is actually 13 inches. 0.6 something. Okay, good. So now we are ready, for example, to play a little bit. Maybe this should be 3 and 1 based on how you want something to look. So it's up to you. Could, for example, say, well, maybe the back radius is a tick bigger and maybe make this 80 so the leg goes further back, but you pay attention to how, for example, this dimension here also gets smaller, so maybe still we have this to set this to 2. And with a chair sometimes now our hip is more at the back area, so this leg can, for example, be more angled than the front leg because our center of gravity is more to the back. Okay, good. On purpose, I created this leg right now at the center because I wanted to show you another function. So in case you start doing this way, your first sketch, and then you realize this is actually not at the right position. So the distance between these two legs, for example, can be around, let's say, 18 inches. So this one has to be moved 9 inches along the x-axis. Well, we know we can offset a plane, go to origin and offset it, and then bring this over 9 inches. Okay. And we know when we go to the sketch, select it, right mouse button click. With redefined sketch plane now, we can actually say, well, take this sketch, but instead of putting it onto the center construction plane, put it onto this new construction plane. So then you click OK, and then this construction plane we created is not there. And that is because we created it afterwards. So we have to either drag this one to the left, so in front of it, or we can also put the time marker in front of the sketch because we, technically speaking, forgot this step. So we do this now in time. Okay. And then we go back in time, right mouse button click, redefine sketch, select this one, and it moves. And it's positioned perfectly, also centered, because my two legs endpoints are constrained horizontally to be aligned to the sketch center point. Click OK, and there we are. So, proper naming. So we call this one maybe C plane left, and this is, for example, our pipe. Perfect. Good. And to create now a pipe, this is very easy. We can go to create pipe because we have the fillets in there. This is a nice G1 tangent transition. So we have the chain select turned on. We can select different types. We'll use circular, click the blue line, and then here 0.75 inches for the tubing. Good. Great. Okay, that's pretty nice. So how do we do now the other set of the legs? Well, we don't really have to redo the sketch. We can simply make use of the mirror command. Select body as the type, select the pipe, select the mirror plane. We want to mirror across, click OK, and done. So now when we adjust, for example, one sketch, let's say this should be 4 and stop, and you see this object will be updated, and then because of the mirror function, obviously the clone will be updated as well. I just wanted to turn on the visibility. Show dimension there. Let's go back to 2. Perfect. Nice. Good. So in a nutshell, that is, for example, the way how we can easily now create the construction for these 2 pipes. Now we have to create the shell, but before we do this, the shell has to actually sit on something, because currently there is a space in between. So how could we ideally do this? So in this case, we should turn this one back on and hide those 2 bodies, because now in my case I will create a small 3D sketch. So the first construction plane we set over 9 inches. So that means another construction plane minus 9 inches. But hey, before I do this, let's go to change parameters. Let's take a look. C plane left, distance, and let's say we call this one C plane pipe. Because now I can create a construction plane and simply say C plane pipe, but obviously negative. Why do I do this? Well, if I go later ahead in the beginning of my design and change the value of this feature, this new construction plane, so for the right, will be updated as well. So I'm linking actually the dimensions or the values. So let's call this one C plane right. Good. So onto this new plane, I will create a sketch. And for example, I would like to project only this line. That's all I need. Perfect. Okay. And stop. Good. So I basically now created the spline or the line for the left pipe and the right pipe. And with this, I basically have the left and the right distance. Now I can actually create a new sketch that will, for example, how could I say that, create the distance in between. So how do I do that, for example? For the moment, let's hide this dimension. Here, for example, we will call this one pipe right. This will actually be pipe left. And now we can create a new offset construction there. And we can move this one maybe back a little bit. And at the same time, I will create another one and move it a little bit forward. This is, for example, pipe cross back, and this will be used for pipe cross front. Okay. So what are these 2 construction planes going to be? Well, we will create a sketch on here, and then we can say the sketch create a nice spline where the new sketch cuts, for example, this line and this line. So let's create a new sketch on this back plane. Okay. You see like where space-wise it is positioned. And then we could say, please find the intersection of this line. You see how actually there's a red dot, and find the intersection of this line, and there's another dot. Okay, and when I hide these two sketches, now you can see I have a start and an end point which lies always on these two lines. And again, it's just the plane of the sketch where it cuts these lines. There it finds a point. So from there now I can go with the, let's say, the arc tool. Hold on, which one is always left and right? Oh yeah, and then we drag the midpoint down. Okay, perfect. And if we want, we could dimension this one. Let's say 41. Good. Stop. Okay, so let's call this one pipe cross back, so it makes sense. And there you see now how it connects there. Okay. And now we need, we could actually project the sketch to the front. I just realized this is going to be probably a duplicate, so I don't even need to do it. So this one was actually maybe not really necessary, but let's see what it will do. Yeah, we can remove this one there. Delete. Good, because the sketch is connected to this plane. Okay. Maybe let's call this one. This is actually left leg, and this, for example, is right leg. Well, vice versa actually. Okay, sorry, I mixed those up. I'm actually working from the back, I realize. Okay, so with along this line, we can now create, let's say, a new pipe. But once you go into pipe command, you see everything will be red because we are cutting, but we want to join. We, for example, could take a square block, or we could use a round block, 0.75 inches, and say OK. And there you see now how, for example, these elements are joined together. But I didn't do this with the other pipe turned on, so let's do this one more time. Automatically you see that now this pipe will be fused, so joined with this one. Or it does not. Okay, hold on. This is interesting. I thought actually it would do it. But let's go back. There, go there. Click OK. No, it doesn't do it. Okay, hold on. Let's try this one more time. 0.75. Yeah, see now, because both legs were visible and I start this command newly, and now in this case it thinks I want to cut out each one, but of course that's not true. I want actually to join those two, but it doesn't join it. That's interesting. Okay, good. We could also in this case here say you and you simply join together. There we have the same. However, we need two of those. So this last step I can delete. And now I can go to pattern, rectangular pattern. So it's something similar like mirror, but with the pattern I can actually create a pattern. Let's say make a copy along one axis, or make 2 copies, 3 copies, or 5 copies. I can make a pattern along a circular path, or for example a pattern that flows along a curved path. So let's go with the rectangular. We select this body, and then we can select this one and see, oh, everything here is selected at the same time. Shoot, Why is this happening? And that is because in my first step, when I created this feature, I had joined turned on. And this looked nice. Now we could preview how this should look, but in this case, it's actually not good. So I can go right click, edit the feature, set operation to new body, click OK, and there I'm good. And now I can go back and go to create pattern, select this object, and now let's see if we can pick a direction. Fortunately, my pipe is horizontal, so I can, I think, for example, select the y-axis. It seems I can even pick the orientation of a sketch line. So let's say we can try this out actually in a moment, because the sketch line is horizontal. This, when we drag it out, will be horizontal as well. But in case the line would be not horizontal, so angled, and I think this would go with it as well. There. Okay, good. We only want to have 2. More we don't really need, and we can specify, for example, where I would like those to be. Click OK, and we're good. So at this point now, then we could say, for example, you join with you and you, okay, and join you with you, okay. Then we can see if maybe these connections are clean. And this would basically be kind of like the welded look, like when everything got cut and then we just weld everything together. This is also a very tricky task to do because these pipes have exactly the same diameter as those pipes. So to make this a tick easier, we make those a tick smaller. But since we're just at the beginning of the semester furniture design, we just simplified this a little bit. Just as a note, I only do this so I can see maybe how this looks at the end. I mention again, this feels like the final welded result. Obviously, later for the engineer or the factory, we send individual pipe parts, and then those have to be cut, bent. For example, these ends have to be, go to a back view. From this pipe, you can see how this is carved out. Well, so we would have to grind this out. So we couldn't put it nicely onto this pipe, and then we have nice touching edges and we weld it. But again, since we're just exploring a design idea, we can just build it the way how maybe it should look later. And then the correct manufacturing data we can later still regenerate. That's a nice thing about Fusion. Okay, I would say at this point we are, let's say, good with the seating. So this, the pipe construction. We're going to ignore coasters or any feet. They're a little bit more complicated to do, but for the moment this is fine. However, let's try this one out. I'm actually curious if this will work. And let's delete this one and this one. Okay, so this is there. Good. Yeah, see? That does it. So because I said with the array, I use this line instead of using the Y. You see I can adjust this one, the orientation of this part, and then my array also will follow the orientation of this blue line, this one here. Okay, perfect. So this worked out. Let's undo everything to this, and we are good. So as step 2, let's take a look at the different ways how we can create and then play with a backrest. So the backrest has roughly a width of 18 inches, and from the hip to your legs roughly is 17 inches long, and then also along your back it grows 17 inches high. So that's actually already pretty helpful, and we will do first a very basic linear backrest. So in this case I will create a sketch at the center of my design. Let's move the mouse around a little bit. One there, one there. Okay, good. This will be horizontal, that's fine. This one we will dimension 17. This one I would like to dimension. And you see my mouse right now drags out the like a dimension horizontally. And when I get with my cursor closer to the line, the blue line, you see that to the lower right corner of the cursor there is at an angle a white line and an arrow. If I click and then move my mouse, you see I am dragging out an aligned dimension. This, however, is sometimes a little bit finicky. So one easy way to control this is click on the line, right mouse button, and simply select aligned. And there we are. Click, 17, done. And now we would like to adjust the backrest. I don't know, maybe 100. Let's leave it at this for the moment. Okay, good. And then we can move this around a little bit. I'm not going to constrain this too much because what we're going to do here right now first is more a little bit trying to explore a very basic backrest, and then I show a more refined backrest. So I can click stop. And what we will do now is switch to patch, and then we will switch to extrude. And because we drew this line from a side, I can extrude this from a side. When we go to direction, we can say symmetry or symmetric, and then it extrudes each side. Nice. Then I can click OK. You see here we have a very sharp edge, not very nice to sit on, no problem. I can easily chamfer or fillet this edge. Again, you see I keep the sketch very basic and then do other details later in the surface tools. Okay, this is nice. And now we have to give this a thickness. So create, thicken, and let's see, do we go down? I would like to hide this one so I do not by accident create this in there. 1 inch, that seems like a lot. Let me measure. And oh, actually it's correct. So for an upholstered chair, 3 inches, that's, sorry, 1 inch, that's fine. Good. Now we have all these sharp edges, and similar to the technique I showed you with the tabletop, we have to go back to this model mode now, since we have a solid object. And then we can click fillet, and now I fillet actually all those vertical edges first there. I don't know, maybe 2 inches, okay. And then I can round, for example, those sharp edges. And I can even fillet them so far that actually it blends into a nice full rounded edge. Pretty awesome. There. Okay. And again, this is a very basic chair. Looks a little bit white and blocky, but okay, not a big deal. So what else can we do with it? So because this backrest is rotated, we can now, let's say, create an opening there so we can grab through it. So new sketch, maybe on this face. You see now it created kind of like a copy of this face. I will hide actually those parts there. Then we can maybe, yeah, let's do it this way. We will, and we can do it easily this way. There, can make a square. But now, how do we dimension, for example, the square also to be nicely and centered? Again, there, for example, we can add a point, let's say here on this mid part. Now, because my whole object got first created centered nicely onto the world, now this point I can select vertical constraint to my sketch center. Or if I want, I could also create a point on this yellow edge, which is actually coming from my 3D object, and then those two define being vertical. So now when I drag this one out, you see the other one grows symmetrically to the other side. And then maybe some dimensions, 2 inches, 6 inches. The distance here, for example, there, can use these 2 points, 2 inches. Looks too much. That's too tiny. There, let's even this out visually. Okay, good. So what's the whole point with this new rectangle I drew? You see the rectangle on the sketch exactly the same way how, for example, you create those lines in SketchUp, slices the face. So now I can go to Create, Extrude, and drag through the backrest and make a cut. And then we have a cutout. And now actually I could go ahead and start filleting, for example, those edges. The nice thing about Fusion and parametric modeling is these edges here, think about you take a file and you file all the material away to round this. But here we actually have a concave edge. So we actually need to kind of add material, and even here you see the software perfectly does it for us. So there we can round it, and then one more fillet, this one and this one. Then we can round this one, and we can even round this one so far again that we get a nice circular cross section. Or you can make it very tiny so it's a little bit rounded. I will go this way. There. Perfect. So that would basically be part 1, how to build the undercarriage, the pipes, and then part 2, how to build a very simplistic backrest. And then part 3, I will show you how we can create a more complicated and nicer looking seating shell. So the nice aspect about the timeline is also how you can, for example, utilize it to, inside one design, create different design ideas or variations. So this, for example, here was used to create this backrest. So left mouse button, click on the first feature, the sketch. Let's also name this one. This is backrest, and this is backrest whole, and this is, for example, backrest. Okay. This face actually is still there. We can, when we should, get rid of it. So select the object, right mouse button, don't click delete because it really deletes everything, which means this will be deleted and then all the following features won't work. We only want to remove it. So at the end of our design, we take it out. Delete removes it completely out of our design. And with this done, select the first feature, the sketch, select the last feature where we removed the backrest, right mouse button click, create group, right mouse button click, rename, let's say linear, whoops, backrest, and then we will suppress this feature, so the group, because I put all these other modeling features into a group and I'm suppressing the group, all these features are suppressed. And to suppress or unsuppress means you simply turn the calculation of that object, or generation in our case of that object, off. So now I can continue where I was before with my legs, and I have here always one design idea. I just turned it off for the moment. Okay, good. So now we can go to the side view and create a new sketch there. So what was it, 17 something, 17 and 17. I type this in and press enter there. Then it adds the dimension for me here. Maybe, yeah, 99. Okay, and maybe keep this one. So now I can start maybe playing a little bit with the design. So let's move this one to there. Maybe a little bit there. So I snap the point to the grid. Maybe a little bit lower, so it's slightly above. Okay. And here later we want something to go down. So how, for example, would we build this part going down? Well, let's actually, we can move this one back, maybe to there. And then we can go to sketch and tangent arc, click on this point, and then we drag a tangent arc out. And then we can try to draw this one so that, for example, it follows, let's say here, the pipe shape. Click OK. Good. Maybe we can get this a little bit closer so it feels more parallel. This one maybe to there. This one maybe to there. There. That's a little bit too much. Maybe like this. Okay, good. So when we now go to patch and then extrude and extrude this one out, you will see that I'm extruding out actually this a little bit arced. So that's pretty nice. But then we would create actually another variation of the previous backrest, which is not really what I want. I want to show you how we can make a nice bent backrest that is very fluid. So to this sketch which I created here, I will add another arc. For example here, tangent arc. Let's see, this doesn't work because a tangent arc has to start from the end of a line. So we use the normal arc, and for example I create an arc there. You might ask yourself, well, what I'm doing there? Well, the whole thing is, I think we can do it this way and this way. Yeah, so now this arc is actually tangent to these two lines. And I think we should be able to maybe dimension this one. Maybe 3. Okay, so it's not too big. And then I can bring this back up. Visually now I can, for example, see a rounding, and 3 is way too much, maybe 2. Okay, perfect. Good. So I also would like to make sure I always have a nice distance of let's say 17. So D, this point, and then this point. There I would like to have a vertical distance, 17 there. And now, for example, I can move this one back a little bit there, and maybe move this down a tick. Okay, So what's this one for? The sketch, it's just only a visual guide or helper. So all these lines, if I want, I can even select and turn into a construction line, click OK. So I have some visual guide or reference. Because now I will create a new sketch. Also on here, there. And then I will introduce you now to the spline tool in addition. That's a pretty nice tool. So spline tool, click, 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 and click, can create some really interesting and fluid shapes. And you see how this one flows. So 1, 2, 3, 4 points. And then what else do we have for spline tool? Well, we have the fit point, which we can move around, and you see based on how I adjust this fit point, the whole spline always nicely deforms. In addition, when I click on the fit point, you see there are these green handles which I can click and then drag and move around. So this way I customize and even a little bit more the way how I want the spline to flow after going through a fit point, or when going through a fit point and leaving it there. So what I will do now is I can, for example, get this one very close. Try not to click it on it, because then you might actually constrain it to there and snap it. So I only use this one simply as a reference. Okay, so, and there we have this one, there we have this one. So this one we should, this is for example in the center, so this can actually go back a little bit, maybe to there. Okay, can play with this a little bit. Here, maybe there, make this one maybe this way, and here maybe we push this one down to look like this. Okay. When you move to something and you see it snaps to it, but what we can do now when we have something selected, we can press M, and then move it around. And then this way we are in the move command. So select the point and M, and then we are not snapping to geometry. So I can, for example, get it very close without, by accident, snapping. Pretty nice. Okay, good. Maybe this one, we move up a little bit there. Okay, so let's say this is good. For example, if we extrude this one out, there's, we get a much more organic and interesting looking backrest. But again, this still is very linear. To the left and right, I would like the shape to change a little bit. So how do I now update this? How do I create the other sketches for it? So I need to have a left and a right sketch, and then I have the center sketch, and then I can use the loft command to skin a surface between those three sketches. This one now, for example, can be hidden. Let's say maybe this one we call layout. This is the, let's say, center spline. Okay, good. And maybe we work just on the back spline. Now I would like to be able to quickly have something I could snap to. So there are multiple ways how we can do this. Well, I can press P to project, or I use the project command. And then I project, for example, just these points. Okay. So with these points projected, now when I, for example, go to the spline command, I could say you to you to you, and there I don't want it to hit, but I will go a little bit to the front, or in this case to the right, so that actually the backrest arcs a little bit there. Okay. So now I can go ahead and start deforming and my splines here. So for example, there, this one has to be moved maybe a little bit to there. Here, those for example can be adjusted a little bit. And then we have this one here where we can work with these splines as well. Again, you can easily and quickly snap it to something, so try to make use of the move command. And I constrained this one horizontally. Whoops, I forgot this one there. Didn't press enter, I just pressed escape, which stopped actually the transformation. Like there, can move this one up a little bit, or maybe this way. There, okay, good. There's actually a coincident constraint, because this fit point is snapped to this point from here, which I projected over, which is not what I want. So I will delete that coincident constraint. So I can move this one maybe a little bit more to there. And you will see why I will do that. And then maybe here we adjust this a tick more. I can, for example, here say you and you be on the same height. So by bringing this point over into my sketch via projecting, I have a snap or a constraint target to make this point vertically horizontally constrained to it. Good. Okay, so now we have this one spline. Now we can click stop. Now we can make the next missing sketch on the other side, and then into this one we only simply project this one over. There's no reason to draw it again. It's actually more work, plus chances are high you might actually not draw it exactly the same way. And now click stop sketch, and then we can go to loft, select first, then middle, and the third. Click OK, and there you have your backrest. And you see, pretty easy. Now, because in this sketch I made this point horizontal, this edge inside my sketch is also horizontal. But if, for example, I just delete this constraint and then maybe move this down a little bit, you see now from the side this has an angle, and also from the back on the front this has a nice arc. Maybe where the hip goes in, I would like that to be a little bit more defined. I can show the sketch, and even in this mode, so I'm not in sketch mode, I can select the point, press M, and maybe move this point a little bit back. Click OK, and then you see the sketch is updated, and then also the surface command will update. I can select a point and move it down a little bit. Okay, there I get even more like a concave shell for the hip to go into. Perfect, you see, not very difficult. So maybe what we did to the back, we can try to see to do for the front. So this is center spline. Then this is actually left. And then let's say this is right. So, and then in the left sketch, again, we snap this one to coincident to this point. We delete the coincident constraint. Then we can move this one away. And let's say now we have to match this a little bit. So M, move this around maybe to there. Okay. Press OK. And then this point, maybe with M, we can bring down a little bit so that the curves start to look a little bit the same. Nah, doesn't look good. Let's delete this vertical constraint and maybe, yeah, see, I have to angle this a little bit. Okay, good. See now there from the back, it has a slight arc. Goodie. So the next step to finish this thickness, we did actually 1 inch in the last time. Let's see if this works. With this one, 1 inch, it should. Feels like pretty big. Let's say this should be a bent plywood, so half an inch is actually plenty, or even a little bit thinner. Let's say it's a plastic shell or something there. Now we can hide all the sketches, go back to model, fillet, and I will fillet those sharp edges first. Push this one in. Let's hope this works. There's actually quite a lot of work for Fusion to calculate. You see it's a tick slower. That's good. We can actually now make another selection to round all the other stuff. I sometimes, maybe the way how I like structuring my design, in this case don't do it. Because now I have one feature where I now visually this is, and when I click it, it does this stuff. And then I just add another fillet for there, and just round this part. Maybe just a little bit breaking the edge, so it's not razor sharp. There. Okay, so the next step in this case, let's say this is more a little bit the ideation and shape exploration. How would the stuff really make sense? We have to put this together. So between the shell and the pipe, there's a huge air gap. Most times we put 1, 2, 3, 4 small blockers in between so we can screw these parts together. So when I take a look from this view, just by accident actually I matched even the distance, so the arcs bend the same way. So I could easily left and right put cylinder or cone in, and then I would have to do the same, for example, also here. But the way how this one dips down a lot doesn't really make sense because it's too much of a space in the back. So for this one, this makes sense because if you take a look at our backrest, the lower edge, you see it dips down. So this could either be a different design, so a little bit flatter, so we can use the same fastening system under the shell, or the shell has 2 different cones or plugs on the back and then 2 different on the front. But again, this, similar to the feet, is a little bit too advanced for this being your first chair where you have pipes and a bent backrest. We will cover those details more later because that's also, as you can see right now, not something you visually see. It's more technicality, and in the design process, try to be visually informative first before you go too much into also considering the technical parts. Okay, that's basically everything for this exercise.